you could see the reaction, the shock, the outrage,
the horror
from Ukrainian government officials when they heard President Biden.
Russia will be held accountable if it invades, and it depends on what it does. It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and then we end up having a fight about what to do and not do, etc.
Jake Tapper was asking their foreign reporter who was in Kiev for just the immediate reaction. This was a lot of eyes were on this in Ukraine.
Were Biden's remarks interpreted there as a less than wholehearted warning to Putin to not invade?
That's an understatement. I mean, they watched those remarks, I think with horror. One Ukrainian official who I've been in close contact with while this marathon press conference is underway said that he was, I'm quoting here, shocked that President Biden would give a green light to Vladimir Putin in this way.
Shock and horror is right, because look what you have here. You had the President of the United States saying, well, if they just invade a little bit, if there's just a little incursion, well, that's one thing. I mean, they do that kind of thing. But if it's more than that, well, then we may have to do sanctions.
In the National Security Council, they war game all kinds of scenarios. The president is included in those conversations. I think they probably talked about what happens if there is a minor incursion. That was not for public information. Those conversations are beyond top secret.
This is a real frightening, weak moment for the Biden administration, coming off Afghanistan, coming off a moment where they said 90% of the people will get out, leaving 10% behind. And now Joe Biden's saying that small incursions of rewriting the land boundaries of Europe are going to be okay as long as they're small. That's really what the message was. This is frightening.
I'm not so sure he is certain what he's going to do. My guess is he will move in. He has to do something.
Have you ever seen a president in history, Rick? I mean, because of your foreign policy work, literally get up and when he's asked a question about what Putin has to do, and say, "Well, I think he has to invade at this point." I mean, he really's got to do something. I mean, to say that at a time when you've got all of your team trying to prevent that, at least that's the goal.
When you have a United States president like Joe Biden telling the Europeans, we're going to let you decide what the policy is and we're going to support you. We call it consensus. We're all going to be on the same page. That's how you get a Nord Stream 2 pipeline of influence into Europe. You get rewriting of the borders of Europe. And you get literally a lot of countries outside of Berlin and Paris capitals that are furious at what's happening. Europe is absolutely less safe and in more danger because of the weakness of Joe Biden and what he's doing with Putin.
Are you saying that a minor incursion by Russia into Ukrainian territory would not lead to the sanctions that you have threatened? Or are you effectively giving Putin permission to make a small incursion into the country?
Good question. That's how it did sound like, didn't it? The most important thing to do, big nations can't bluff, number one. Number two, the idea that we would do anything to split NATO, which would have a profound impact on one of Putin's objectives is to weaken NATO, would be a big mistake.
I think there was almost an audible gasp from Washington Democrats during this press conference, Jay. I mean, obviously, their electoral chances are tied to this president. I think they know he made a blunder. Jay, to me, maybe the worst moment of that was when he got pressed on that comment about a minor incursion. He kind of chuckled. And look, give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was a nervous laugh. But, Jay, this isn't funny.
If you invade Ukraine, the amount of territory you're taking up is the rebuilding, Wes, of the former Soviet Union.
Which is Putin's ultimate goal. Think about it. In the last 8 years, he has invaded 2 other countries already. He took Crimea and he took parts of Georgia. And so the president is giving him tacit permission to continue this ambition to reestablish what was the Soviet empire.
Joe Biden invited the Russians yesterday into Ukraine. At least to the, I don't know, is that the first 50 miles of the border, the first 250 miles of the border? I don't know.
Biden has been a part of the administration where the borders were rewritten in Europe twice. Now we're looking at a third time. You can't tell the world that a Biden presidency is somehow not inviting weakness. They see it. They see the evidence. And the Europeans, the rest of Europe, outside of Berlin and Paris, are nervous.
This is a powder keg. As a historian, there is a sanctity to borders and incursions, and those words mean a lot in the international community, especially to Europe, because borders is what they fought about and have fought about throughout the 20th century. Hitler said, I'm going to take the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. Are we going to guarantee the border? And when he marched in, it meant war. When he took Poland and moved in, it meant war. President Biden has obviously never read a history book.
I think we will if there's something where there's Russian forces crossing the border, killing Ukrainian fighters, etc. I think that changes everything. But it depends on what he does, is actually what extent we're going to be able to get total unity on the NATO front.
Why bring up to the entire world that NATO's not allied behind how to respond to Putin?
I've been told by officials in Germany that when our Secretary of State was there for meetings in Germany, that he didn't even bring up with the Germans their NATO obligations. When you don't support NATO and you get away with not supporting NATO, don't be surprised when NATO begins to crumble or is weak. There was a lot of criticism of Donald Trump undermining NATO. Nothing undermines NATO like not paying your obligations and then saying we're not united behind incursions in Europe.
One of the few press conferences he's done is first year in office. And he did, went for a couple of hours, and it was not good, to say the least. And I say this not because I'm just a conservative or even say, oh, Jordan, you're a Republican. That's not why I say it's not good. It's not good for the country. It's not good for the country when you say that, well, Ukraine, there might be a minor invasion. NATO might break up over this. And also, by the way, what do you think Putin's going to do? I think he's got to do something. He's got to invade Ukraine.